Greetings and bienvenue, Midnight Crew. Thank you for returning to this broadcast, and welcome to new viewers joining us for the first time. If you like a video, then feel free to subscribe.
Let's talk about sleep paralysis. What enables the brain to create the monstrous creatures some see during an episode? I believe they are visitors from another dimension. Your brain recognizes the energy in the state of paralysis, but cannot process a visual. Therefore, your brain creates an image to place with the energy. I've seen shadow people while conscious, so I think sleep paralysis visuals are just shadow people morphing into other forms in your mind's interpretation.
I used to have it every night for weeks. I was like 10, it would always stand to the right of my bed. It was absolute terror. I would try to scream for my brother's name, but I could never get words out. I could sometimes move my arms and would try reaching to it, but could never quite get there. It would just stand, watching me. I would then feel as if I was lifted up, floating. I could feel the bed beneath me with my hands the whole time, but the feeling of being dropped was so real I even bounced. I've tried to replicate that motion of being dropped, but could never do it. It felt so genuine. I've learned since it's called a hypnic jerk. After the drop, I would regain control of the rest of my body. It never felt like I woke up. From being frozen to standing up, it was seamless. Only then could my brother hear me, but I never told him what was happening at the time. It was terrifying the first dozen times, but then it just became routine. Laying on my back, can't move, watching me, floating, falling, then rolling over and sleeping. I actually felt angry that it was wasting my time when I just wanted to sleep. Every night my brother tucked me in tight while I was on my back because I was scared. So funnily enough, I was causing my own sleep paralysis. A few years ago I had it again. This time I could move my arm a bit more, so with no fear, a bit of playfulness. I'll get you this time. I reached for it and I touched it. I instantly felt as if I had fallen through my bed, all of me except my legs. It felt as if I were hanging upside down with my legs bending at the knees, keeping me from falling. I could still feel the bed beneath my hands. Then I was violently pulled up a bit past my bed and felt the same bouncing sensation as before. It was over and I turned on the lamp. I thought I knew what it was capable of, so I got comfortable. I haven't seen it since, but if I do, I'll just lay there. The mind sure is capable of some crazy stuff.
I genuinely think there is no spiritual or supernatural explanation to sleep paralysis, as it has occurred throughout my life, until very recently, when I had my nasal passages surgically widened to help my breathing prevent sleep apnea, as well as my recessive jawline fixed to open my wind passages. However, before both of those, it used to happen quite a bit. Always when I was overly tired or stayed up for uni assignments or to play video games. One sleep doctor told me it was common with people with breathing problems like me, because when I stop breathing, I wake up, but not consciously. I just break my REM sleep pattern, which could cause lifelike paralysis dreams. It started when I was very young, where I had sleep paralysis, where the bed began to violently shake while I tried to scream, but I could not scream nor move. As I got older, I saw dark figures, alien-like creatures or demon-like omens. But it was always what I was scared of at the time. As I got older and less fearful, it usually just was black shadows with some kind of hostile feeling. Used to get it probably once a month since I was 8 years old, or more frequently if I was stressed with uni. At one point during an incredibly stressful period, I had it every night for 2 weeks, and it was extremely distressing, having a snowball effect, as the more it happened, the more sleep-deprived I was. The more sleep-deprived I was, the more it would happen. Since my wind passages have been fixed, I have had no sleep paralysis. Seriously, it is a terrible thing to have happened frequently. So if it does happen to you, go to an ENT specialist doctor and get yourself checked out.
I've had hallucinations where these things come at me, man. They're so angry, so hostile. They growl, shout at me, they bite, touch, or just make the room around me shake like there's an earthquake and tornado happening at the same time. And when I say they touch me, I feel it. They don't hurt me per se, but I feel the pressure of them holding me, biting me, and my muscles tense up out of pure fear and helplessness. It's the scariest thing, and if I had control over myself, I promise, I'd piss my bed while crying for my mother. Sometimes I even try to move my hand ever so slightly enough to be able to start knocking on the wall as an attempt to call for help, But usually when I wake up, I'm in a completely different position and I realize my intense efforts were a waste.
I had a strange experience where I was in a dream, and some dream character said, "Salt room," and then immediately I woke up from my dream in my bed, feeling as if something was sitting on my chest. I opened my eyes, but I couldn't really move my body. I saw a figure, but it was more a strange outline of energy or something. It was see-through, but it formed a shape enough that resembled a tiny man, kind of like the dummy from Goosebumps. Anyways, suddenly I hear a voice in my head. "What do you know of the salt room?" And I could easily make eye contact with this thing. I was startled, but not actually scared. I shook my body and came into complete awakeness, and the energy body disappeared. But, because I was still tired, I was able to lie back down and instantly go back into the half-dazed where I could see and feel the entity again. This time, it just sat there looking at me, expecting an answer. Instead, I just jolted myself awake. It was a bizarre experience.
It's kind of like the opposite of sleepwalking. Your mind is awake, but your body is asleep, so you're dreaming while being awake, kind of. It's like in dreams, the part of your brain that controls movement shuts off, so you can't move when you're walking in a dream. This means you can send signals to other parts of your brain to make your dream avatar move, but it doesn't translate to physical movement, and you stay still. In sleepwalking, there's a mix-up and you're in a half state where you can see and your brain starts controlling your movement again, and you walk around easily while incorporating the surroundings into your dream. In sleep paralysis, you can see, but now you're in a state where your brain doesn't send the right signals to your body, so you're completely paralyzed. This creates panic, and that panic is incorporated into your dream by manifestations of fear and anxiety.
How can one induce sleep paralysis, though? And don't tell me I don't want it. I know what I want for me. Just tell me how to get it.
It varies from person to person. For me, it seemed to happen the most when sleeping on my back and when I was really tired. Scientifically speaking, sleep paralysis usually happens when there's less oxygen going to your brain, so sleeping in a position that would cut off the oxygen supply slightly should probably do it. But honestly, unless you like being immobile and mute while otherworldly demons exact their wicked ways on your body, you really don't want it.
I can't really say it's difficult. I had it for a long time, but it stopped when I was like 12 and I haven't had it since except for a couple of times. I'll try to give the best advice I can though. Stay up really late. You want to be utterly exhausted. Pulling an all-nighter, or 2 if you have the willpower, will help. Don't hesitate to load up on caffeine during that time as well. You want to be as strung up as possible, so that can only help. When you actually go to sleep, I've heard many things about what you should do. There's a sort of consensus that you should lay totally still and not even scratch. Having some stress in your life might help. Though simulating this would be tough, just try to be as unstable as possible. Really though, it's mostly up to luck. If you haven't had it before, it's not likely to start affecting you all of the sudden, and all the steps in the world won't help too much. My suggestions would up the chance, but I definitely don't make any guarantees. Obligatory disclaimer, it will be quite jarring the first time.
Be immobile in the bed for like 20 minutes or more without sleeping. Don't move a muscle. Then if you think that you had time enough, just try to move your body, but you will notice that you can't. This is scary. To get out of this state, just hold your breath until your brain enters in danger state and gives you back the control. Worked for me once, but I never tried again.
Sleep on your back. Seriously. Every time I wake up and realize I'm on my back, sleep paralysis hits immediately. They say if you go back to sleep instead of fighting it, you will lucid dream. But I usually just want to snap out of it. It's uncomfortable as hell. Also, let your sleeping schedule get out of whack.
I was on a drinking binge, and my body was pretty weak. I fell asleep. I thought I woke up, and my roommate was sitting beside me chatting, and the girl that lives above me was playing 4 to the floor tune increasingly loud. But it was actually only me in the room, and the 4 to the floor sound was my heart. I woke up and turned my light off. A few hours later, I woke up and I saw a figure in my room. Again, I thought it was my roommate, grabbing my phone charger, which is at my bedside. But I looked up and it looked like an ominous cowboy. Throughout both experiences, I had a feeling of immeasurable horror, and I think it actually expanded my imagination. Cool psychological experience, but very scary at the moment.
Been having sleep paralysis regularly since I was in 6th grade. It's really not that bad, but uncomfortable. Sometimes this unshakable sense of dread completely washes over you, and that is absolutely terrifying. Half of your mind knows it's just your brain screwing with you, and the other half is praying for it to end. The first time I had sleep paralysis, I felt a demon standing over me and breathing on me. I felt completely disturbed to my core and couldn't sleep for days, as I had truly thought I was visited by a demon. I even read my Bible that night. I chilled out once I looked it up and realized there was a scientific reason behind it. Sometimes it can mind screw you. Once in high school, I had sleep paralysis and my mom came in to wake me up for school, telling me I was late. I was trying to twitch and somehow signal I couldn't move, but she closed the door right after my chihuahua came into the room. My dog jumped on the bed and snuggled with me, and I suddenly snapped out of it and realized it was midnight on a weekend and nobody was there. Another time I woke up paralyzed and was chilling trying to ride out the storm when I heard a witch's cackle and started freaking out. Once I managed to kind of roll myself off the bed and wake up, but I'm not sure if that was a dream. And yes, I have it so often that I even dream about sleep paralysis. I got plenty of stories.
It happened recently for the first time in a long time. Someone I used to be friends with died many months ago. We hadn't been close in over 10 years, so it wasn't really a big deal. Maybe a month or so later, I had an episode of sleep paralysis, the first I had remembered in quite some time, where a dark figure was standing at my bedside like had happened many times before, but I thought at that moment that it may be him. It started mimicking playing the guitar, which was something my old friend was known for. I still wonder if it was just my mind, or if he actually came to visit me in some form after life.
I've found a reliable method to establish a link between reality and dream while having sleep paralysis. Through sleep paralysis, you get lucid dreaming. Today I had my first lucid dream where I had at least some control. So I was listening to a podcast, Knife Point Horror to be exact, at 5 a.m. because I couldn't sleep, and at some point I dozed off. At some point I woke up in my bed and the podcast was still playing. It got annoying, so I disconnected the headphones from my phone, but it kept playing. I got scared, but then I realized that I was lucid dreaming while being sleep paralyzed. Instead of waking myself up, I embraced the state I was in and tried to think about sexy things, but the podcast was too distracting. I tried to get up and managed to get to my kitchen. I moved very slowly and I had to concentrate really hard to move my limbs. Plus, the lights just wouldn't turn on, but I could somehow still see. The podcast was still playing and it felt as if I had invisible headphones on. Then I tried to exit my apartment, but my concentration started to crumble and I started seeing creepy things, shadow people mainly, and got scared, so I woke myself up. I had my headphones on and was laying on my bed and the podcast was still playing. I was back in the real world. It felt surreal because I could swear that I had just been standing in my kitchen. Awesome experience. I don't think that I would have realized that I was dreaming if nothing had been playing through my headphones. Today I will try the same thing but with soothing music.
I've only experienced sleep paralysis once when I was suffering from depression. Didn't have any strange visuals, other than seeing my entire room clear as day in the middle of the night with no lights. But I had this kind of white noise in both ears that was so intense that it felt like it was what was causing it. Extremely terrifying experience. I couldn't tell you why, but it just was. Leaving any kind of spoops out of it, it was like my body, mind, or whatever was trying to flood me with as many negative emotions as possible to forcefully restart my survival instincts, will to live. And it did work. I've never been so happy to wake up and drink shitty coffee and go about my shitty day as I was after that night. Haven't been anywhere near as depressed since, and thankfully haven't had to sit through another hard reboot like that.
Okay, first-time poster usually lurk for a long time. No paranormal things have ever happened to me. I occasionally suffer from sleep paralysis and have seen the man with the hat, but no cat or hag. Then the night before last, December 9th, I had the worst yet also the strangest and terrifying experience in, well, ever. I'll try greentexting the 3 connected events. Any thoughts would be welcome. Be a 42-year-old with 6 kids from ages 5 to 21. Wife fell asleep on the couch with mobile while I was in bed watching a movie. Start to doze on back, only light from TV. Panic stars to come in waves tried to get up. but couldn't. Look over at the door. My 20-year-old son walks over to my bed and puts my phone on the bedside cabinet. He is only a black silhouette. I knew it was him because of his height, untucked shirt and skinny jeans. Closed my eyes for a second. Gone. Still couldn't move. I struggled, but somehow managed to get my hands up to my face. Wanted to slap the sleep out of me. Looking at hands, not the door. Look at the door, son is there again. He's saying something, whispering, could only make out the word laptop. I can't hear you, speak up, son, can't hear you, was what I wanted to say. What I said was, Panic gets worse. The heart feels like it's gonna explode. Blink, gone. Then the last time my son entered the room messed me up so much, I think I passed out. Standing at the door again for some reason, he wanted to come over to my bed instead of walking over across the carpet. His arms and legs got about 3 feet longer, and backs against the wall he climbed or side-crabbed along it toward me. Nope, sleep. 7 a.m. wife wakes me up. Sorry I forgot to bring the phone up last night, but Anon's son brought it up. No phone. Anon's son stayed at his girlfriend's last night. Bollocks. I managed to phone him soon after thinking I had to. He's fine, I'm not. What do you think?
The first time I've ever had sleep paralysis was very bizarre. I stayed at a friend's house, but during my stay, found out that another mutual friend of ours had committed a crime in the upstairs bathroom. When I fell asleep, the dream was much more vivid than usual. In fact, I hardly remember any of my dreams before or since. Anyway, we were sleeping in the living room, and in this dream, all of the objects fell off of the living room table and formed the shape of a reverse pentagram, glowing pink, and held together almost magnetically on the floor. A friend of mine sits up in a trance and feels the need to point out the pentagram, but at this point I feel that it's simply a dream and disregard it and go back to sleep. Once that happened, almost immediately I felt something standing over my body. There was nothing but the silhouette of a man standing out against the almost pitch blackness of the room. I could feel the presence, but saw no features. The moment I noticed that something wasn't right, a voice whispered Lucifer in my ear. It seemed more like a warning than anything. Being a Christian, I disregarded the entity entirely and put my faith in Christ. That seemed to piss off whatever it was, as from that point on, all I remember was seeing a big orange vortex. I felt a warmth in the center of my stomach that was almost pleasant, but I awoke, completely frozen. I couldn't speak. I couldn't move. I told the owner of the house, and he seemed as if he wanted to avoid the conversation. About a week later, he tells me about this story, where multiple people have seen this apparition in his house, and he feels uncomfortable whenever it's spoken about. Evidently, it takes the shape of a man with a hat wearing a pinstripe suit. I have no idea what happened. All of this happened prior to my experimentation with psychedelics, with no history of any type of delusion or schizophrenia. I'm aware that it is highly unlikely that Lucifer felt the need to attack me, but I just don't know what else to think. The entire experience is reminiscent of a far less abstract DMT trip.
I could feel the presence, but saw no features. That is the strangest feeling. One of my bouts of sleep paralysis had me lying in bed in a completely jet black room, and I felt the door swing open. Obviously, I didn't see it, but I just knew it happened. Then some being came over to me, picked me up so I was facing the floor, and then said my name twice. My body was limp the entire time. The most petrifying thing about that was it sounded like my father, and I remember saying, "Dad?" and then waking up. Maybe it sounded like my dad because he used to pick me up like that when I was younger if I fell asleep on the couch, and he'd take me to my room.
I don't know if it fascinates me. Nightmares are testament to the duality of consciousness. There is a part of you, your subconscious, that wants to screw with you. I used to have nightmares where the second I realized I was dreaming, any character in my dream would attack me. I knew I wasn't alone in my head. This is a very underappreciated facet of normal life.
Why does your mind do that? It always turns happy thoughts into some dark hellscape.
I don't know if it fascinates me. Nightmares are testament to the duality of consciousness. There's a part of you, your subconscious, that wants to screw with you. I used to have nightmares where the second I realized I was dreaming, any character in my dream would attack me. I knew I wasn't alone in my head. This is a very underappreciated facet of normal life.
The right brain is blind and mute, but it feels and hears everything you do. Look up people with split brains to fix epilepsy. Then look up the percentage of people born with missing brain parts. Then look up how much nutrients it actually takes to grow a functional adult. We're all mad here.
I've had sleep paralysis twice in my life, and both ended with me trying to fight some demon. First time I woke up with a pale-looking being hovering over me. Stared eye to eye with it for a bit, then threw an uppercut at it, and that was the end of it. Second time was a few months later, and the same pale, skinny bastard was hovering over me, albeit a bit farther back. I couldn't move at all this time, so I just spat at it. Haven't had it since.
I hope that you enjoyed tonight's broadcast. If you enjoyed tonight's story, then please subscribe to the channel, as more green texts will appear daily. A new broadcast will appear when the clock strikes midnight Central Time.
Remember to check out the Odyssey page in the description for a second archive of the channel's videos.
There's also a Rumble archive as a backup.